lessons have served me well my entire life. Mom didn't just provide for material needs. She also gave us many of the gifts that we all need in order to grow into healthy, happy, productive adults. She gave us expectations, values, challenges, goals, opportunities to learn from our own mistakes, and a hand up when we stumbled or fell. One of the things about Mom that I did appreciate, even as a spoiled child of privilege, was the home that she made for all of us, as Jen has already referenced, for us and all of our friends. Even as early teenagers, my friends all loved to hang out at our house, and they loved Doris. She created a home where my friends knew they would always find a warm embrace and a delicious meal or snack. And one young lady I dated in high school told me that she loved spending time at our house because she got hugs there.
She got what?
Hugs, dude.
Huh?
Love and hugs. Hugs.
People tend to say that they would do anything for their kids. Mom really would. And here's an example. My first date with that young lady in high school I just referenced came about because one day, as I was heading out of town for a youth trip, Mom asked if there was anything she could do for me while I was gone. And I said, yeah, there's this young lady I've been trying to get a date with. And every time I ask her out, I get the excuse that I'm not giving her enough notice. So her name and number are in by the phone. While I'm out of town on this youth trip, why don't you call her up and ask her out for me? And she did. Can you imagine that? That was the beginning of my courtship with Judy, so I guess another belated thank you to Mom. Having given so much, Mom asked so little. Recently, she did ask me for something. Pictures of my family. Yeah. She specifically asked for something printed out in frames so she could just immediately display it. I did a whole lot of work on that. My effort consisted of mentioning it to Judy, who then promptly made it happen and got it shipped out so that it arrived promptly so Mom could cut it up. And at that point, I realized that Mom had been making that request for a while, and I've been blowing it off. So the moral of this story is somebody you care about gives you an opportunity to do some little thing please do better than I did. Mom always did her very best to be a great mom. I love her, I'll miss her. And with that, I will turn things over to a person who absolutely exemplifies all of the wonderful things and characteristics that we learned and internalized from Mom about grit and resiliency and hard work and determination. My sister, Mom's second child, Carla.
Mm-hmm.
That matters and how much it's worth. But I would not have missed those last couple days for anything in the world. Lessons were learned, Precious things happen that happen in no other way. In some ways, my mom and I were alike. And in some ways, my mom and I were very different. Mom had a natural elegance, going about doing what was needed to be done, focusing on needful things. Those things that matter most, not being at all concerned about the superficial. I was and still tend to be drawn to fashion, style, material things. What is going on? I think I was a challenge for my mom in that way growing up, particularly in my teens. These things were at the forefront of my existence. On one occasion, probably around age 16, Mom took me back to school shopping. After purchasing the standard shoes and a couple of outfits, my eye was drawn, and I can still see that coat, to a full-length leather Cordovan coat with rabbit fur around the collar. I pointed it out to Mom. I look on Mom's face like, what? It didn't matter at all to Mom. She didn't even, no, Carly, you don't need that. No, you don't need that. She informed me that my down parka would do just fine. And of course, in those days, our down parka was what we wore to school. It's what we skied in. Speaking of that, my mom took me every single Saturday to Jefferson County bus and just let me go skiing all day on Saturday. She had a million other kids and things to attend to, but I got to go skiing every Saturday. I kept pointing the coat out to my mom. She dragged me away. On Christmas morning, amongst many, many, many other gifts, like Mitch says, we were spoiled. There was the Cordovan full-length leather coat with a rabbit fur collar. I wore that coat out like I was the Queen of Sheba. I thought I was the most stylish girl in Arvada. Mom saw absolutely no value in this coat. But as I look back on it, she knew it mattered to me, and she was trying to support who I was. Jennifer mentioned that we moved from Westminster, Colorado to Arvada, Colorado. I was about 12, going on 13. My mom always wanted to make the home just whatever she could make it. And I remember when we moved into this new home, because my parents had it built, I was so excited. And I was particularly excited when they showed me what would now be my room that I didn't have to share with anyone. Mom and Dad had taken their furniture that had been passed down from their parents and had painted it all white for me, bought me what was my favorite color, this beautiful floral purple bedspread. I had a vanity, an actual vanity, where I could primp and do all the things I like to do. I thought that was amazing and unique. My brothers, who had to share a cool room, thought I was spoiled. But I remember Mom thinking a girl that was about 12, 13 needed her own room. That was a mom who was in tune with things that mattered to each of her children. Another story that mattered a lot to me and still does to this day is when I was 11, I was horribly riddled with acne. Horrible. And at that time, I remember getting on the school bus and being called Zip Face by a boy named Dave Bustos. See, I remember his name. It was so dramatic. But I also remember going downstairs. My parents' bedroom was downstairs. I'm sort of an eavesdropper sometimes. I went downstairs and I could hear my parents talking in their bedroom. And I could hear my parents talking about my acne and the problem with my acne. And my mom saying, she's miserable, Tobe, it's gonna affect her whole. My dad said, get her to a dermatologist, do whatever it takes. And that made me feel so safe and protected. Man, I got into a dermatologist. I had these, back in those days, the treatments were painful and agonizing. But to this day, I have no acne scars. That mattered to my parents, the things that matter to me. One other thing I want to mention, maybe someone else is going to mention, but to me it's amazing because I like to control things so much. When my parents moved here to St. George, the grandkids thought, Grandma and Grandpa have this really cool basement down there. And the first time, I don't know if it was Christian or Catania, called them and said, hey, we're going to come down for a St. George weekend and bring about 10 of our friends. I go, oh, that's not going to happen. 3 or 4, sure, but not 10. Oh no, they brought 10 of their friends, and then it became a habit. Then by the time Isaiah was in college, oh yeah, 10 of his friends were coming. And I thought it was the best testament to grandparents that they loved it. They opened their house to 10 young adults coming from BYU, had food for them, let them own the basement. And my mom, who liked to have control of things, relaxed, and her grandkids meant more to her than any control she could have ever had over the house. My mom influenced my life in countless ways. In our household, I think one of the greatest lessons I ever learned was to be loyal. You be loyal to each other and you be loyal to friends. Those you love, be fiercely loyal to. She taught us, as has already been mentioned, the gift of hard work by the sweat of thy brow. Tenacity and persistence. I remember I made finalist, and then when I didn't make cheerleader, I came home crying, and my parents said to me, fine, you can mourn, but then, cheer up. You got to cheer. There's none of this nonsense, moaning about. So they taught us you got to have a good attitude and you've got to be persistent. Mourn your loss for a second, but then get back up and keep going. Your attitude determines how you navigate the world and how the world sees you. And again, my parents were the epitome of service. They made service fun when we were growing up. Anonymously taking things to families. We thought those were the most fun family home evenings. We all got to participate, buy things, doorbell ditch. It was the most fun. They made service seem fun. As Jen mentioned, we have been looking through my mom's journals, and I want to quote in closing one thing she said. She said, when I think of my blessings, I realize that they all involve people. When those you love are healthy, happy, and enjoying progress and accomplishments in their individual lives, all is well. When those you love have spiritual, physical, mental, or emotional difficulties, we must work together to overcome those problems. And my mom, if nothing else, worked hard to overcome problems and support all those she loved. I'm grateful for her example. I'm grateful for the many lessons I learned observing her and being her daughter, and probably not being an easy daughter. I always knew she loved me dearly, and I know she is in a better place where she is loved, and we will miss her here in this life, but I'm so grateful for the knowledge I have that she will be my mom forever. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
You may have thought you were done hearing from me. Sorry. I just briefly, along with my siblings, would like to share 3 personal experiences with my mother that I think really speak to some of her wonderful attributes. I always knew that my mother was smart, but when I was 10 years old, I had the unique experience of learning about her from one of her childhood classmates. After flying off a bicycle on a rainy day, my face needed some repair work. My mom took me to a hospital in Denver, Colorado to have my face stitched up. As I lay on a table having my face stitched together by one doctor, another doctor burst into the room and asked, "Doris, is that you?" I listened as this doctor, Dr. Raul Lucero, and my mom had a friendly reunion. Listening, I learned that they had been classmates throughout their school years in La Jolla, Colorado. I heard Dr. Lucero tell my mother that she was the reason he had become a doctor. He explained that he was always working hard to keep up with her in school. He told my mom that she made him a better student by challenging him and pushing him to compete with her in the classroom. He told me, as I lay having my face repaired, that my mother had been the best student from their class and that he and she were always trying to outperform one another. I learned that Dr. Lucero and my mother were the only 2 students from their class who had gone on to college. Dr. Lucero asked my mother about her life. My mother beamed to tell him that she was a wife and a mother. She was unapologetic about her choice to devote herself to her family and obviously very happy with her choice. I realized that my mother could have likely been anything she wanted, including perhaps a doctor, but she was fulfilled and happy in her role as a wife and mother. I gained added insight into my mother's feelings about her life's work this week as we were reading in my mother's journal, and she wrote, I felt as a young woman that my calling was to be a good wife and mother, raising my children to be good people who knew they were loved and who wanted to achieve their best was my calling. When I became a mother myself, my mother's work ethic and devotion to her family blessed me so much. I heard friends tell me that when their mothers came after they had a baby, they were left caring not only for their newborn, but for their mother. Well, this was not the case for me at all. After the birth of each of my children, my mother came into town, rolled up her sleeves, and went to work. She shopped, she cooked, she cleaned, she did laundry. She got up in the middle of the night. She cared for my older children. She told me that she wanted to do everything she could so that I could relax and focus on bonding with my newborn. She told me that she was there to care for her baby, meaning me, so that I could care for my baby. I felt her love as she served me so joyfully. Each time she left, I wondered how I was going to manage without her, and yet at the same time, I felt imbued with confidence that I could be successful, thanks to her. Throughout my life, I knew that my mother believed in doing things well. She didn't believe in cutting corners, working in haste, or doing things half-heartedly. And I can share many examples of this impressive characteristic of my mother, but I'll share just one. When my son Christian graduated from high school, he had this huge collection of t-shirts from all of his high school activities. Knowing my mother was such a good seamstress, I asked her to make him a t-shirt quilt. I collected a big bag of his shirts, and I dumped them on her living room floor. Although she had made many wonderful quilts, she had never made one from t-shirts, but she was excited for a new challenge. Months later, when Christian stopped by my parents' home for a visit, she presented him with the most wonderful quilt memorializing his high school experiences. Christian was thrilled. When I saw the quilt, I told him it was too beautiful to use as a quilt, and jokingly, I suggested he should turn it into a wall hanging. It was so well done. The excellent artisanship was evident. A few years later, I presented my mother with a load of my daughter's high school t-shirts and asked her to work her magic once again. She told me sadly that a recent stroke had made her unable to do this task. It was sobering to think that my mother was not invincible, and that time takes its toll on all of us. I realized I was going to have to make my daughter's quilt. I put it off, but finally managed to piece together a t-shirt quilt for my daughter, and later for my younger son Isaiah. If I were to show you the quilts in comparison, I would embarrass myself. There's really no comparison. Christian's quilt stands as a tangible example of my mother's excellence in all that she did. I'm so grateful that my mother was smart, happy in her chosen calling as a wife and mother, and an inspiration to others. I'm grateful that she was a hard worker and that she loved serving her family and friends. I'm so grateful for her example of doing things well and putting forth her best effort in all that she did. I'm so blessed to be the daughter of Doris Anderson.
I guess that means I'm up. While I don't believe any of us get to choose the condition of our birth, if I had to do over, I would choose what I got. To have the sisters that I have, an older brother that I idolized, and parents who took such wonderful care of me is more than anybody could hope to have. And you've heard a little bit about how good Mom was to my siblings, so you can only imagine how good she was to me, because as we all know, I am her favorite. There was a period when we moved into the house on Estes Drive where the older kids were kind enough to go to school every day, and Diane didn't exist yet, and Dad would go to work, and I had Mom to myself for many hours every school day for a couple of years. And those are some of my earliest and most treasured memories. Watching her in the kitchen, watching her as she took care of the house, did the everyday things that needed to be done. I especially remember sitting outside our little laundry room, watching TV or playing with toys while she was sewing the girls' clothes or doing the laundry. And to this day, the sound of the laundry machines brings me total comfort. Mom, I remember at that age thinking, man, school seems like a drag. Those guys have to put on all those mittens and scarves, and then they go out into the weather in Colorado, and this was before global warming. So in my mind, from Thanksgiving till Easter, it was just one whiteout blizzard after another. And those guys would have to go walk 2 miles to school. And I was absolutely wanted none of that. And but people told me it was going to happen one day. And I remember feeling betrayed when that day finally came. And Mom carried through on her threat, and my time with her was up, and it was time to go to school. But I'll always treasure those times with her. After that, just, with 5 kids, I have no idea how they do it. I have trouble with 2 kids. But it seems, I can't imagine how many piano lessons, basketball practice, baseball practice, tennis sessions. It seems like, I don't know how my mom had time to do anything except be my personal chauffeur from the ages of about 8 to 16. But that's what she did, and she did it for all of us, and she did it happily, and I'll always be grateful for that. And as I find myself doing the same kind of stuff for my kids, cooking, being an unpaid Uber driver, all these things, I take pride in it because I know there's value in it because I saw my mother do it. I feel I'm very lucky to be her son, and I will miss her forever and love her forever. And Diane, you're up.
That I was an accident. So, first, I'd like to make amends. Mom, I know that I asked a lot of questions. I know I had a lot of energy. I'm sorry for the times my way of being in the world caused you worry or pain. Now I'd like to thank my mom for 5 things she taught me. Lesson number 1, reading is freedom. As the youngest of 5 kids, parental attention was in short supply. Mom, you had other kids and their sports and homework and activities and social lives to attend to. There were meals to cook and clothes to sew and wash. But you were an avid reader and made time for books and our special excursion. The 2 of us would take trips to the library. I browsed the kids section while you were in the grown-up section. When you were done, you'd come and collect me, and I got to pick out 10 treasures to take home. Mom, you taught me that as long as you can read, you can go anywhere in your mind and learn anything. How right you were. Thank you for taking me to the library. Lesson number 2, explore the outdoors, or Mother Nature is magic. Our house in Colorado had a majestic view of the Rockies, which I know you loved. In our yard there, we cultivated a garden. You showed me how a seed became a sprout, became a plant, and then a vegetable or fruit. You taught biology, chemistry, and physics in the great outdoors. In California, we traded aspens for palm trees and bougainvillea, but you especially loved your roses. I'm planting one of your favorites, a Mr. Lincoln rosebush in your memory. For those of you who don't know, it's a beautiful red rose with an amazing fragrance. Every time I look at it or smell it, I'll think of you. Thank you for a magical time together in the great outdoors. I cherish our time digging in the dirt. Mom was always game to hit the trail, as her walking posse knows. That takes me to lesson number 3. Go play, or movement is medicine. Mom, you loved softball as a young girl, that there weren't many opportunities for sports in the small towns you grew up in, especially for girls. You made sure to sign me up for swimming and tennis, gymnastics and dance and volleyball and basketball. Maybe it was to keep me out of your hair, but I think you also understood you have one body, so you might as well take care of it. You suffered from migraines, as do 3 of your kids, and in your quest for a cure, you were early into biofeedback. You introduced me to body scan techniques. There was also a PBS show called Lilius, Yoga, and You. It was on after Sesame Street, and it was my first introduction to yoga, which became a big part of my life later. Thank you for teaching me my body is a temple. Lesson number 4, cherish friends and family. Mom, Shirley, and Janet, and others are here today because you were such a great friend and encouraged connections. When we moved to California, I didn't know a soul. About a month or so later, you hosted an epic birthday party, one for the history books. Let's be honest and give credit where it's due, it was largely modeled after Janet's birthday party for Sandy back in Colorado. But it was so I could get to know the girls in my class. I became fast friends with someone who was Muslim. You explained your Mormon beliefs to her, but you realized what a good person Nadia is, LDS or not. You stopped trying to convert her and encouraged that friendship without fail. Nadia has been my best friend for 40 years and is one of my life's greatest blessings. Thank you for allowing that friendship to flourish. Mommy always made friends and family feel special. You let us pick our birthday dinner. Mine was always fondue. It was the 70s after all. And you made sure we had a cake on our birthday. You rarely missed a performance or game of mine. I remember looking from the stage or the court to see your face, smiling in the stands, cheering me on. Even if she didn't pay attention to Dad's games, she paid attention to her kids. Sometimes support means cheering people on. Other times it means pushing them. Mom, you had high standards for me. I didn't like that you expected so much of me in school, but now I'm glad you did. Thank you for encouraging me to accomplish difficult things and believing in my ability to achieve. Lesson number 5, faith is strength. Mom, even before your baptism at 13, you had a strong belief in the divine. Our religious and spiritual paths are not identical. The Unitarian Universalist Zoom service I go to on Sundays isn't the same as yours. The God of my understanding looks different. My relationship with my higher power has changed over time and continues to evolve. But you taught me to listen to the still small voice inside, and that has made such a difference in my life and my ability to choose what's right. Thank you. Your belief led me to be a seeker in this lifetime and helps me to surrender to grace when I don't have answers. Your testimony shaped me, even if not in the way you originally envisioned. When I became a mother, my mom encouraged me to sing to my newborn, so I did. On Thursday, January 14th, a nurse held the phone to my mom's ear for about 30 minutes. I got to thank her for these lessons, and I also sang her a silly song that she sang to me when I was little. I'm not going to do that. Sadie Anderson is going to offer her rendition here now. that you pray like I do. Do 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 do.
What a wonderful reflection on your mother and the impact she's had on your lives. What an honor to hear from Mississippi. Quite a number of us that we know her well. I've met others know her. Really resonated with this message. Very nice. We'll be privileged now to give a poem. This is a poem that was written by Doris. Will be given to us by my granddaughter, Story Layer. After which, co-banners will offer a couple of thoughts on reflections of Doris. Following that, we'll have a slideshow. This was prepared by Tanya Reynolds Carter, her granddaughter, and we'll proceed that.
Hello, my name is Story Lair. As many of you may know, my grandfather loved my grandmother very much. From today, you can see that as well. Each year, he would write a very meaningful poem for my grandma and share it with our family as well. I could see the way it would light my grandma up. I know that my grandma will find comfort when I read these same words my grandfather wrote for her, and I am honored to read this poem today. My sweetheart, my wife, my love. The blessings of true, true love can hardly be explained. The Lord has given such to me, so precious I'll explain. She comforts me when cranky and soothes when I am in pain. Her life seems focused just for me, and still I do complain. So search the web for ailments strange that I have conjured up, and find solutions just for me. I am sometimes a pup. And yet it does not bother, her focus is so clear, and yet sometimes I'm certain she'd like to box my ear. But she has always been my sweetheart. How can I be so blessed? I know the years that we have left will be the very best, because she feeds me when I'm hungry and comforts me when I'm faint, and even when I misbehave, she treats me like a saint. So, Doris, you're my true, true love. You bless my life each day. Please know how much I love you. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Grandpa.
Someone once said that told me you're never at a loss for words. But I am today. From the day that I met Doris, she was a student at BYU, and I'd gone up there with my brother to meet her and some of her friends. I was on home from leave from the service. And after we had visited and had dinner, I asked her if she would consider me coming up alone the next night, and just she and I would go out to dinner. And she said that she'd like that very much. So the next night I went up and took her to dinner, asked her if I could write to her, and from that day forward, there was no other woman in my life. We got married quite young. We were both 20, and I didn't know too much. I had never gone to church at all. And she said to me, "Well, I think I'd like to go to church." And I said, "Go ahead." And
So she did. And then she went to a evening Book of Mormon class taught by George Pace, and I heard some of the sisters talking about that class, how cute George was, and how the sisters really enjoyed the class. I thought I'd better go and see what's going on. So I joined the Book of Mormon class too, and found out that he was kind of cute, but I didn't care for him. But I enjoyed the class, and that was the beginning of us becoming active in the church. Now, if I'd have known that it was going to entail a bishop, stake president, mission president, I'd have said, forget it. It's too much for me. But it worked out okay. She was the absolute best thing that could ever happen to me, because she smoothed over the rough spots and sometimes had to be very, very strict with me to make me shape up. But she made me see the way to really fulfill ourselves was to live the gospel and try to honor the priesthood that I held. And because of her, I tried to do that. And it did bless our lives. Now, Doris was very, very smart, and as we've heard, and she could have gone on and got a PhD and done all those things academically if she'd wanted to, but she just wanted to be a mother and have children. If it hadn't been for her health, we probably would have had 10, 15 kids. That's all she wanted to do is have children and love them. But 5 was all we could have. And she felt bad that that was the size of our family. She would have liked it to be much bigger. I thought it was plenty big at 5. maybe 1 or 2 too many, in fact. No, that's not true. Those we have 5 kids that are just darling, and I love them dearly. They've been a blessing in our life. But I would have to say this about Doris. She knew what she wanted, she knew how to go about getting it, and she had standards that were to be very, very high and not to be argued with. She wanted to be good, she wanted to live the gospel, she wanted to do the things that our Heavenly Father would want her to do, and she did them. She made me a much better man, and I remember sometimes when I thought I was kind of a big shot because I was a jock, she'd let me know in certain terms that was just a means to an end. And someday that would be over, and then the real work, the important stuff would then begin. And she was right. To be a parent is the most important thing that you can do, and we're blessed with 5 wonderful children. And we're very proud of each one of them, how wonderful and how good they are. I guess I should have prepared something, and I didn't think I would, and I didn't. So I'll end by saying she was the love of my life. I was blessed that she accepted me. And to this day, she's the best thing that ever happened in my life. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
still. Through the day of tea from the cup, packed up the photo album Matthew had made, memories of a life that's been loved. Took the get well soon cars and stuffed animals, poured the old ginger beer down the sink. Dad always told me, don't you cry when you're down, but Mum, there's a tear every time that I blink. Oh, I'm in pieces, it's tearing me up, but I know a heart that's broke is a heart that's been loved, so I'll sing hallelujah. You are an angel in the shape of my mom. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you back, you'll say hallelujah, you're home. Fluff the pillows, made the bed, stacked the chairs up, folded your nightgowns neatly in a case. John said he'd drive, then put his hand on my cheek and wiped a tear from the side of my face. And I hope that I can see the world as you did, 'cause I know a life with love is a life that's been lived. So I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mom. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. And when God takes you back, say hallelujah, you're home. Hallelujah, you were an angel in the shape of my mom. You got to see the person I have become. Spread your wings and I know that when God took you back, he said hallelujah, you're home.
Very tender, joyful, and beautiful. Truly an angel among us. And what a nice tribute has been made to Doris this day by the family and those that are close to her. And remarks for your husband, Mr. Tribute. What's the best thing to hope? And to have an angel like you. This segment of the service will be closed. Family wanted to just invite grandchildren if they had a comment that they needed to take 5 or 10 minutes to allow you to maybe make a comment and share a thought that you might have. Keep it brief. You just need to unmute your device and share your screen so we can view you. And if you have any comments, we'll take 5 or 10 minutes and allow that to proceed before we conclude this service. Time is now yours.
Hello, I'm Doris's granddaughter, Jessica. Doris was a great grandmother. As a young child, I remember visiting Tobin Doris and eating tubs and tubs of licorice by the pool and her making me strawberry shortcake for dessert. She would tell me how much she loved me and that I was great. I did very little to earn her praise. She just did basically everything to make life great for me. It was a pretty sweet deal for a kid. It wasn't until I was older, a few years ago in fact, that I really began to appreciate Grandma more fully. My husband and I had moved to Rochester, New York with our 2 young kids, and we were both working and we were far from family. It was around this time that Doris started calling me regularly. She was recovering from her strokes, so her speech was difficult. She was frequently frustrated and thought she sounded silly, though I never thought so. I thought she sounded tough, persistent, and like a woman who wouldn't give up. Her messages and our conversations went somewhat similarly during this time. She would tell me how proud she was of me and that I was doing a great job. She was proud of my work as a teacher. She loved seeing pictures of my boys, and that it looked like we were doing a great job as parents. As a mom who definitely felt overwhelmed at times, it was really powerful to hear that message from someone older and wiser. I felt connected to her because it seemed like she knew somehow what I needed to hear, and she wasn't afraid to share her love and her praise freely. It was much sweeter than any shortcake ever was. Doris taught me many things through her life and our time together, but one thing I know that I will remember is to tell people you love them and that you're proud of them. Tell them often, tell them freely, and may we all do so more in her memory.
Hi, I'm Doris's grandson, Josh, and the memory I want to share is from when Zach and I were in high school. I think we were about 16, and on a whim, he and I and about 6 of our buddies decided that we wanted to get in a car from Denver and drive to Mexico. And we decided to stop in San Diego and see Tobin Doris, and I'm not even sure if we told him we were coming, but we just showed up and Doris opened the door and welcomed me and Zach and 6 of our friends into our home, and somehow had 8 sandwiches ready to go and just went about taking good care of us. And while we were there, we shared our plan with her, and she was concerned about the idea of 2 carloads of 16-year-olds driving into Mexico, and quickly went about persuading us that it was a bad idea. She told us about the crime and the expense of a hotel, and at one point she even told us that she was pretty sure Mexico was closed on weekends. Didn't persuade us. But we stayed there a couple more days, and when the time came for us to leave, me and the guys got together and they pulled me and Zach aside and they said, you know, we don't want to go. And it isn't because of the crime, and we called and checked, Mexico was in fact open. But they didn't want to leave. The home that Tobin Doris created was just so much fun and full of love that having gotten a taste of it, they decided they wanted to spend the rest of their time there with Tobin Doris. I love you, Doris.
I'll go next. I'm Jennifer's oldest son, Jordan. And since Grandma passed, I've been thinking a lot about just what I would share if I had the opportunity to, and just thinking about our time, my interactions with Grandma. And there was one, I'm not even sure if it will connect with most people, but for me, I don't know, this story just, it means a lot to me in a weird way, but since I got married, people have poked fun at us about having kids and when we're gonna have kids and things like that, and I've been thinking about, and just in thinking about that and what I would do as a father and kind of how I would treat little energetic kids, I always had this idea that I thought was really original and really funny, and I didn't know why people didn't do this more, of having, if the kids ever got too rambunctious, just to have them run around the house a couple times, and just have them go outside and run in circles and just get out their energy. And I thought that's a really good idea, just having them run in circles. Why don't more people do that? And I don't know, it was kind of a silly thing I would use to poke fun at my in-laws or my wife and things like that. But then one time visiting Grandma and Grandpa, I kind of told them thinking like, oh, Jordan's just being silly or whatever. But Grandma said, oh, like I used to have you and Christian do when you guys lived with us. And I thought back and I realized that she did. She would have us, when me and Christian were kind of getting too energetic, she would just have us run around the house a couple times. And I don't know, I remembered that the instant she said it, and I remember thinking that was so fun and just, I don't know. I guess the reason I like that story so much is I just feel it's a weird thing, it's a small thing, it may not make sense to most people, but I don't know, it makes me feel connected to Grandma. It makes me feel like there was this idea that we shared that we thought was a good idea. There was this thing that maybe some people would think was silly, but that, I don't know, she knew we would like, that we did like, and that, I don't know, it was something that she did to make sure that we were always having fun, even though we were cramped out at a house with our grandparents. And I don't know. Like Josh said, I love you, Grandma, and I'm gonna miss you.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Isaiah. I'm the youngest son of Jen, and I'm one of Doris's grandsons. And Jordan, you actually used that trick. I don't know if you remember, but you used to lock me and Tanya outside the house to make us run around when we were little kids. It was a good time. And it worked great on us. But as I've been listening to everyone's thoughts and listening to everyone that is shared, the thing that stuck out to me is just how grateful I am for everyone here who has been united together because of Doris and all of her children and grandchildren. I haven't seen a lot of you in a long time, and just seeing your faces has really brightened my day and lifted me up. So I'm so grateful for this time to see you. But as has been mentioned, when I was at BYU, me and my friends would frequently take trips down to St. George, and it was super interesting because we had a lot of options of places to stay, because there are several different sets of grandparents that live there. And I remember one of my friends, even their family had a house that was just like a cabin that no one lived at in St. George, that was just open. And so we always had to decide where to stay. And I thought, we should go stay at the cabin, the open place, because we don't want to be weighed down by any grandparents or anything. But all my friends always wanted to stay at Grandma and Grandpa's place, and it blew my mind. And after a while, it just made sense, because we would go there and like everyone's already shared, like Josh and everyone, Grandma just had a way of making a home the place that you wanted to be. And we knew we'd get free breakfast and free lunch or whatever we wanted, and they'd always be there for us. And it was just such a great time. And I remember one of my friends even, he really loved apples. And whenever we would go down, he would eat all of their apples. And it was just the weirdest thing. He'd always just eat all of Grandma and Grandpa's apples. And then whenever I would tell Grandma and Grandpa, like, hey, we're coming down for the weekend if that's all right, Grandma would be like, okay, is Chris coming? I'd be like, yeah, he's coming. She'd, okay, I'm gonna go get some apples. And she'd go get him like 2 bags of apples. And that's just the woman that Grandma was. She was just always thinking of everyone else, regardless of herself. And I'm grateful for the example that she set for me, and I'm grateful for all of you who've helped me to see that as well. Love you, Grandma.
I'll go next. As everyone's been talking about how loving Grandma and Grandpa have always been, and the atmosphere they always created in their house. One specific story from my childhood has come to mind. I remember when we were kids, we would visit Grandma and Grandpa in San Diego all the time, and it was always super fun. It was always a great time. But I remember one time specifically where we were sitting around the dinner table, and the structure of the dinner table, I remember it was a big oval with just a big post in the middle holding the whole thing up. And I had to have been somewhere between the ages of like 10 and 12, I can't remember exactly. But we were playing some card game, and I leaned over the table, and I got pretty excited. And I remember the post holding the whole table up cracked right down the middle, and the whole thing, I broke the whole table basically, because I got super excited. And being the little kid I was like 10, 12, whatever, I remember immediately feeling super embarrassed, feeling like just feeling embarrassed, like I was worried that I was gonna get in trouble or grandma and grandpa were gonna be mad at me. But I remember, I just remember grandma making sure I felt okay, making sure I understood that she cared more about me than she cared about the table. And I don't know, that seems like a very obvious and simple thing, but that sticks with me to this day, that I feel like a lot of grandparents or people would have at least momentarily been upset about their nice dinner table being cracked in half by their grandkid. But I remember grandma's attention immediately going to making sure that I was okay and that I knew that she cared about me and that she wanted me to feel safe and loved, and she wanted me to feel at home and not like I was a visitor in her house. And just like everybody else has said, grandma had a way of making everybody feel loved, making everybody feel at home, no matter how long she knew you, no matter how much time you'd spent in her house. So I just I love you, Grandma. I'm gonna miss you. Yeah.
My name is Katanya. I'm Janet's third child, Doris's granddaughter. And as I was thinking about what I could say, there's lots of different stories I could tell about Grandma, but the thing that just keeps, what sticks out to me, what keeps popping into my head is just that every time I think of Grandma, every time I imagine her, I just,
Me too.
yeah, it doesn't help that Grandpa's over here when I see him cry. It makes me cry. But I just have this image of her in my head of she just looking up at me and smiling, and that's just how I picture her, how I remember her. And with a big smile and with her big eyes, just so happy and so excited. And I feel like that really just kind of explains who Grandma was and how much she loved her family and how much she would always be so happy and so excited to be around her family, around her kids, around her grandkids. And it was almost like she was like giddy, like a little kid to see us. And like has been mentioned many times, I remember when I was at BYU, I would just call her, well, I still am at BYU, but I would just call her and say, hey, Grandma, like, I'm coming with 10 other kids down to St. George this weekend, like tomorrow. Is it okay if we stay at your house? And with no hesitation, she would just be so excited, and she'd be like, yes, absolutely, like, of course you guys can stay here. And we would come, and she would not just be willing to have us there, but she'd be so excited to see us and to feed everyone and to make sure everyone had what they needed and just to get to know my friends. And I was always just so proud to be her granddaughter. And so anyway, that's how I'll always remember Grandma, just that her smiling face looking up at me with her big, happy smile.
I'll go next. I'm Story, Diane's daughter and Doris's granddaughter. Due to the fact that I did almost drown and my grandfather had to save me, I was going to see them in the summer and different times and staying with them. And I remember my grandparents would take me to my swimming lessons. This is before I would do swimming lessons with Isaiah. So I had my own swimming lesson time. And it was such a cool swimming place with lily pads and a bunch of slides. And I was so nervous. I was telling my grandma, like, I don't think I can do this, like, I'm nervous. And she told me, both my grandparents, they told me, you can do this, you know? And she would watch me frolic around and play in the water, just like let me stay there even after my lesson was done and just swim around. And I wanted to continue to swim. I wanted to go to those lessons when I would see my cousins. And it was fun to me because she made it fun. She made it something I wanted to do. And she helped give me the strength to keep on swimming, you know? She told me, like, it's okay that something happened. You can still do this. You can have the strength to do this. And I really, really appreciated that about her because she would always give me so much strength. And I remember whenever I was in the car with my grandparents, she'd always turn up the music and she would just sing. And it was so comfortable because I could just be myself around her and sing. And it made me so happy. And I'm just really grateful for her, just like everyone is saying, because she did give me strength and comfort. And whenever I was with her, I felt special, like we were alone together, you know, and I could tell her things and she could tell me things I felt she could only say to me and I could only say to her. And it meant something because I can't do that with everyone. And she made it so comfortable, so easy to open up and talk. She just had such a warm presence about her. And I love that about Grandma. And I really hope that I can have that type of presence about myself too. She's such a sweet, loving, kind person, and she's given me the strength I am to be the person I am today. And I really do love my grandma, and I'm going to continue to love her for all my life and continue to go into things with strength because she's given me strength.
Thank you for those thoughts and messages. We reflect on this moment to celebrate her and what a celebration it has been. Thank you for participating in your thoughts and messages. I'm sure the family is strengthened and edified and blessed as we reflect on it. Now, my challenge to you, family members, and those that have the privilege of knowing Doris would be to keep that love and legacy that she's taught us alive by emulating her and following her example that she has set. And what a privilege it has been for each of us since some little way, even friends and neighbors, to know Doris and to feel of that same love that you siblings and grandchildren share. And it's infectious, and again, keep that legacy alive. My challenge is keep that going in your own lives, in your own families, and that's what she would want for us. We know God loves us because she has allowed people like Doris to be with us. And that's how much your Father in heaven loves you. And again, we're honored. These proceedings will now conclude with a closing song by Sadie Anderson, God Be With You Till We Meet Again. Closing prayer will be given by Doug Anderson.
till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, God be with you till we meet again.
Our Father in heaven, we express gratitude for the spirit